What was the significance of the Dungan Revolt? The Dungan Revolt, also known as the Tonghi Hui Revolt or the Hui Muslim Minorities War, was a series of conflicts fought in the 19th century in western China. The conflicts are sometimes compared to or included with the Panthay Rebellion in Yunnan province that occurred during the same time period, mostly during the reign of the Tongzhi Emperor, who ruled from 1861 until 1875. This video, however, is telling the story of the first of two waves of uprisings by various Chinese Muslims, mostly Hui people. The first wave occurred in the provinces of Shaanxi, Gansu and Ningxia, with the second wave taking place in Xinjiang from 1862 until 1877. The uprising was eventually oppressed by Qing soldiers led by Zuo Zongtang. Causes. The conflict began when riots erupted between the Hui and Han Chinese, which resulted in massacres of Han Chinese. This eventually led to massive demographic shifts in the northwest of China and a population loss of an estimated 21 million people from a combination of massacres, migration, famine and plague. The conflict led to estimated population losses of 74.5% of its population, or 14.55 million in Gansu province. Shaanxi lost 44.6%, or 6.2 million people, and in the northern portion of Xinjiang, 72.6%, or a reduction of around 340,000 of its population. The loss in population of the Hui people in Shaanxi was particularly severe. Research figures by modern historians estimate there were at least 4 million Hui living in Shaanxi before the revolt, but only around 20,000 remained in the province after the revolt. Most Hui were killed in massacres and reprisals by government or militia forces, or deported out of the province. Large numbers of Han Chinese were also relocated to Inner Mongolia once the conflict had ended. Harsh punishments were meted out against the Hui in Shaanxi by Manchus, occasionally over communal issues, as at that time Manchus regarded the Hui as the aggressors. The Qing governor of Shaanxi laid all the blame of the rebellion on the Shaanxi Hui and stated the Gansu Hui were not to blame, even claiming they were forced to join the rebellion. Officials in Gansu were more lenient towards the Hui, and in 1869 several Shaanxi Hui rebels fled to Gansu. The Yunnan army was extensively infiltrated by the anti-Qing. The Hui Hui secret society began several mutinies during the Dungan Revolt, delayed several crucial offensives until General Zuo Zongtang put down these mutinies and executed anyone with involvement. Hubei Hui soldiers mutinied in Suida in Zuo Zongtang's army in 1867. The Han Hui has infiltrated the Qing military in Xinjiang during the Dungan Revolt's second wave and allegedly planned to help the Hui rebels before the rebels themselves were crushed. The conflict initially erupted on the western bank of the Yellow River in the three provinces mentioned earlier. It was a chaotic affair that often involved diverse warring bands and military leaders with no common cause or single specific goal. A common misconception is that the revolt was directed against the Qing dynasty, but evidence would suggest there was no inclination that the rebels intended to overthrow the Qing government or attack its capital at Beijing. The indication suggests the rebels' intention was to exact revenge on personal enemies for perceived injustices of the past. In the aftermath of the conflict, mass emigration of the Dungan people from Ili to Imperial Russia ensued. Who are or were the Dungan people. The Dungan people refers to Hui people who are predominantly Muslim, Chinese-speaking ethnic group in China. They are sometimes referred to as Chinese Muslims and should not be confused with Turkestanis or Turkic people who are predominantly Uyghurs, Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, Tatars and Uzbeks. The ethnic group known as Uyghur people was not known by that name before the 20th century. Prior to that time, the Uyghurs of the Tarim Basin were known as Turkey. Uyghur immigrants of the Tarim Basin to Ili were known as Taranchi. The modern name of Uyghur was assigned by the Soviet Union in 1921, with Uyghur being a derivative of the former Uyghur Khaganate. Therefore, records from the period of the Dungan Revolt makes no mention of the term Uyghurs. Although Hui was, and still is, a Chinese name that broadly refers to Muslim people, it refers specifically to a group of Chinese-speaking Muslims that share many cultural similarities to the Han. Europeans commonly refer to these groups as Dungan or Tongan during the Dungan Revolt. Revolt in Gansu and Shaanxi. Background to the revolt. The Dungan Revolt erupted as a result of ethnic antagonism and class warfare, and not as religious strife, as was sometimes mistakenly assumed. While Chinese Muslims played a major role in resisting the Qing dynasty in its early years after its toppling the Ming dynasty in 1646, Muslim Ming loyalists in Gansu, led by Minorities and Ding Guodong, organized a revolt with the aim of removing the Qing and restoring a Ming prince of Yanchang, Zuo Zongtang, as emperor. They were supported by Han Chinese and Tibetans in that revolt. Once it was quelled in 1649, with Minorities and Ding pledging loyalty to the Qing, they were given ranks as members of the Qing military. However, when the Qing withdrew their armies from Gansu to fight resurgent Ming loyalists in the south of China, Minorities and Ding, along with others, resumed their fight with the Qing. They were ultimately beaten by the Qing, and 100,000 of the rebels were killed in battle. Course of the revolt. As Taiping soldiers approached southeastern Shaanxi in the spring of 1862, the local Han Chinese, encouraged by the Qing government, formed militias known as Yongying to defend the region against their attackers in fear of the now armed Han. The Muslim population formed their own militias in response. Historians recorded that the Dungan Revolt began in 1862 not as a planned uprising, but as a succession of local brawls and riots triggered by trivial causes. There were also false rumors spread that the Hui Muslims were aiding the Taiping rebels. It was also reported that the Hui Ma Xiao Shi claimed that the Shaanxi Muslim revolt was connected to the Taiping. Large numbers of the Green Standard Army of the imperial forces were Hui, and according to some historians, one of the incidents which led to the revolt was caused by a fight over the price of bamboo poles, in that a Han merchant was selling overpriced merchandise to Hui. After this fight, mobs of Hui attacked the Han, in addition to other Hui who had not joined them in revolt. While this might seem a trivial reason to set off a full-scale revolt, according to historical records from the era, bamboo poles were being bought in large numbers by the Hui to make spears as weapons. Those same historical records state that prior to the conflict over the price of bamboo poles, there had been plans set in place among some members of the Hui community to set up an Islamic state in the west of China. This was allegedly set up through mosques and mullahs. Due to the low prestige of the Qing dynasty and its armies being deployed elsewhere, the revolt began in the spring of 1862 in the Wei River Valley before spreading rapidly throughout southeastern Shaanxi. By late June of that year, organized bands of Muslims had laid siege to the city of Xi'an, a siege that was not relieved by the Qing until the autumn of 1863. The Muslim rebels were driven out of Shaanxi and into Gansu, while the Governor-General of the region advised the imperial government to not alienate Muslims. He officially made it clear that there was to be no mistreatment of or discrimination against Muslims, which resulted in the implementation of a policy of reconciliation. Meanwhile, Muslim rebels tried to seize the present-day cities of Lingwu and Guiyuan in several attacks. As a result, false rumors spread that the government was going to kill Muslims. This resulted in vast numbers of Muslim refugees fleeing Shaanxi to Gansu. Some of them formed the 18 Great Battalions in eastern Gansu with the intention of fighting back to reclaim their homes in Shaanxi. While they were preparing for the proposed fight, Yaqub Beg, who had fled from Kokand Khanate in 1865 or 1866 after losing Tashkent to the Russians, declared himself the ruler of Kashgar and shortly after took complete control of Tarim Basin in Xinjiang. In 1867, the Qing government sent General Zuo Zongtang, one of its most capable commanders, to Shaanxi to pacify the region. His approach was to promote agriculture, especially the growing of cotton and grain, in addition to supporting Orthodox Confucian education. Zuo arranged for massive amounts of supplies to be available before he went on the offensive, including ordering of 10,000 Yunnan army soldiers dispatched under his command. Before they departed from Yunnan, that army had swelled to 55,000 before the final push to reconquer Gansu from the Dungan rebels began. Other armies from the provinces of Sichuan, Anhui and Henan also joined the battle, in addition to thousands of cavalry. The Lanzhou arsenal was established in 1872 by Zuo Zongtang during the revolt and staffed by Cantonese. Lai Chang, the Cantonese officer in charge of the arsenal, was skilled at artillery and oversaw the manufacture of steel rifle-barreled breech-loaders, in addition to providing munitions for artillery and guns. The Muslim Jahriya leader Ma Hualong controlled a massive Muslim trading network with multiple traders, giving him control over several trade routes to numerous cities. His monopoly on trade in the region gave him great wealth, of which he used to purchase weapons. Zuo Zongtang became suspicious of Ma's intentions, believing he wanted to seize control of the entire region of Mongolia. After a temporary lull in the offensive, building up enough grain reserves to feed his army, Zuo attacked Ma Hualong. The siege was led by General Liu Jintang, who bombarded the town walls with shells. The people inside were left to resort to cannibalism to survive. Zuo's soldiers reached Ma's stronghold in northeastern Gansu in September 1870, bringing Krupo siege guns with them. Zuo and Lai Chang directed the artillery fire against the besieged town, and after a siege lasting 16 months, Ma Hualong was forced to surrender. In January 1871, Zuo sentenced Ma and 80 of his officials to death by slicing, while thousands of Muslims were exiled to other parts of China. Zuo's next target was Hezhou, now known as Ningxia, the main center of the Hui people, located to the west of Lanzhou and a key point on the trade route between Gansu and Tibet. Hezhou was defended by the Hui under their leader Ma Zan'ao. He was a member of the Kafir or Old Teaching sect and was ready to explore avenues for a peaceful coexistence with the Qing government. When the revolt erupted, Ma Zan'ao escorted the Han Chinese to safety in Yixin and did not attempt to conquer more territory during the revolt. Despite that, he still felt the onslaught of Zuo's fury and successfully repelled the initial assault in 1872 while inflicting heavy losses on Zuo's army. Ma even offered to surrender his stronghold to the Qing and provide assistance to the dynasty for the duration of the war. He managed to preserve his Dungan community with his use of diplomatic skill. While Zuo Zongtang pacified other areas through exile and a policy known as washing off the Muslims, an approach that was long advocated by some Qing officials. In Hezhou, the non-Muslim Han were the ones Zuo chose to relocate as a reward for Ma and his soldiers helping to crush the Muslim rebels. Incidentally, Hezhou, or Ningxia, remains a centre heavily populated by Muslims to this day and has achieved the status of Ningxia Hui, Autonomous Prefecture, recognised by the People's Republic of China. Other Dungan generals included Ma Qianling and Ma Haiyan defected to the Qing and assisted Zuo Zongtang in crushing the rebels. Reinforced by the Dungan people of Hezhou, Zuo planned to advance further west along the Heshi corridor towards Xinjiang, first though setting his sights on Xining on his left flank, which not only held a large community of Muslims but also sheltered many refugees from Shaanxi. Beginning in August 1872, led by Liu Jintang, the Qing armies moved deep into enemy territories, adopting strategies of steadily advancing while encircling their enemy and suppressing the revolt. The government soldiers engaged in several fierce firefights, relying on artillery, coordinated infantry and cavalry to suppress their enemy positions. The government forces repeatedly defeated the outgunned Hui Muslim forces, killing huge numbers of their enemy through tactics including luring their foes into carefully set ambushes and annihilating them. Through skillful maneuvers and utilizing the terrain, Liu Jintang coordinated his artillery to damage the backbone of the Hui forces. Gradually, after several days of fierce combat, drove the enemy away from important strongholds and piece by piece secured control of the war zone. Hui Muslim leader Ma Guiyang in Xining city conspired with others to unite in resistance against the government armies. When Ma left Xining with his army, Han Chinese within Xining sealed the city, preventing Ma Guiyang from returning, although a siege situation ensued. Several thousand Hui Muslim infantry went on the offensive to attack a camp of government soldiers, splitting into two groups. However, the government soldiers left the camp to meet with the enemy, defeating them outside their defensive perimeter. Realizing they were outmatched, the Hui Muslim forces withdrew back into the valley, pursued by government forces who took the opportunity to cause a major rout of the Hui. Over the following 2 days, several battles took place before the government forces attacked the Hui encampment, forcing them from the mountain hideout, where they were ultimately defeated with heavy losses for the Hui. Into September of 1872, and the Hui forces had some success at Shago before cavalry were dispatched by Liu Jintang to rescue the government forces laid under siege, which was achieved after fierce fighting with substantial losses for both sides. In early October 1872, the Hui forces were repeatedly attacking the government forces stationed in Shaanxi. On the 9th day of the siege, Liu Jintang moved his soldiers into position to attack the Hui and relieve those trapped inside. The following day, they were met by more than 10,000 Hui reinforcements. After a bloody battle lasting until late afternoon, the Hui finally retreated, while Liu ordered their fortifications to be strengthened. A few days later, on the 12th of October, no fresh attacks, Liu Jintang was informed the Hui were located in a nearby gorge, so he selected some of his finest soldiers to attack from the southern and northern flanks. A night assault was conducted, which saw more than 1,000 Hui killed, as the gorge was overrun by the government troops. The following day, the Hui launched a counterattack, but it was not successful. On the 17th of October 1872, Liu Jintang was informed that the city of Xining had been under siege for 2 months and was in urgent need of resupplies. With large numbers of Hui soldiers preventing his advance to the city, Liu led his armies north into the mountains. The Hui divided into 3 groups to attack the government forces. However, Liu had set a trap, and artillery strikes on the Hui enabled Liu's army to head south towards the city of Xining. 2 days later, on arriving at the approaches to the city, Liu saw campfires of the Hui surrounding the city. After several more days of battles, the capture and killing of 3,000 or 4,000 Hui soldiers, and the capture of military equipment and livestock, and the people of Xining were relieved of the siege after 3 months. Additionally, over 1,000 elderly and weak Hui Muslims outside the city pleaded for mercy, and they were permitted to return into a routine of normal life. The Muslim population was spared, but the Shaanxi refugees sheltering there were later resettled on arable land in eastern and southern Gansu, isolated from other Muslim areas. Despite repeated offers of amnesty, several groups of Muslims continued their resistance. At Suzhou or Jiuquan, the last stronghold along Hershi Corridor in West Gansu, under the command of Ma Wenlu, who was originally from Xining, he led several Hui people who had retreated from Shaanxi. Zuo Zongtang laid siege to the city in September 1873, surrounding the city with 15,000 soldiers. The fortified city could not withstand the artillery barrages and fell on the 24th of October. Zuo had 7,000 Hui executed. Those that were spared were resettled in southern Gansu. This act ensured the entire Gansu corridor from Lanzhou to Dunhuang was free of Hui, therefore preventing the future collusion between the Muslims of Shaanxi and Gansu with those of Xinjiang. Hui, Han and Hui loyal to the Qing seized the land of Hui rebels in Shaanxi, with the Shaanxi Hui eventually being resettled in Zhanjiachuang in Gansu. Discrepancies and confusion. There are some discrepancies and confusion surrounding the Dungan Revolt, in that rebels were disorganized and without a common purpose. This was true to an extent that may have been an accurate assumption, that with some Han Chinese also rebelling against the Qing state during the revolt. At times, it may have been difficult to ascertain who was fighting who, with rebel bands also fighting each other. Other areas of confusion could surround rebels being awarded with titles, such as the Hui rebel leader Ma Huilong being given a military rank and title by the Qing dynasty. Other discrepancies surround Zuo Zongtang, with his deciding when rebels had surrendered, if they should be spared or executed. Zuo generally massacred rebels that belonged to the new teaching Jariya cult, even if they surrendered, while sparing those rebels that were part of the old teaching Kafir and those following Sunni Gedimu. Ma Huilong belonged to the new teaching school of thought, so he was executed by Zuo, while generals such as Ma Jinling were granted amnesty and even promoted to Qing military for following the old teaching clique. Further to this, an army of Han Chinese rebels led by Dong Fuxiang surrendered and joined Zuo's army. Zuo accepted the surrender of Hui people that belonged to the old school, providing they also surrendered large amounts of military equipment and supplies, and accepted they would be relocated. The followers of the new teaching Muslims were not accepted for surrender, as the Qing considered them a dangerous heterodox cult, similar to the followers of the White Lotus Buddhists. The eventual fate of Ma Huilong. During the revolt, some Hui people fought from the beginning of the unrest for the Qing against the rebels. One of those, Wang Dagui, a pro-Qing Muslim leader, was rewarded for his working with the Qing against the rebels. Ultimately, his relatives and Wang himself were slaughtered by anti-Qing rebels. While never calling for an Islamic state, as was the intention of Turkic Muslims in Xinjiang, the purpose of the revolt was purely to exact revenge on local corrupt officials that had done them injustice. Ma Huilong originally negotiated with the Qing in 1866, agreeing to surrender while giving up thousands of weapons, spears, swords and cannons. Ma even assumed a new name to signify his loyalty to the Qing, Ma Chao Qing Ma Tu Shan, A Manchu official hoped this would lead to more Muslims following his lead and surrendering. However, Ma Hualong's surrender had no effect and the revolt continued to spread. Ma Hualong eventually returned to the rebels before surrendering a second time. This time, in 1871, he faced execution before once again surrendering all his weapons. Zuo wanted Ma to convince the other leaders to surrender before he, Zuo, discovered a hidden cache of 1,200 Western weapons in Ma Hualong's home of Xinjiang. For this offence and not persuading others to surrender, Ma Hualong, along with male members of his family and several of his officers, were executed. Hui Muslims in non-rebellious areas. Hui Muslims living in areas that did not take part in the revolt were completely unaffected by it, with no restrictions placed on them, nor did they try to join the rebels. Professor Hugh D.R. Baker stated in his book Hong Kong Images, People and Animals that the Hui Muslim population of Beijing remained unaffected by the Muslim rebels during the Dungan Revolt. Elizabeth Allers wrote that the relationship between Hui Muslim and Han peoples continued normally in the Henan area, with no ramifications or interagency from the Muslim revolts of other areas. Allers wrote in the document Notes on Some Joking Relationships Between Hui and Han Villages in Henan, published by the French Center for Research on Contemporary China, that the major Muslim revolts in the middle of the 19th century, which involved the Hui in Shaanxi, Gansu and Yunnan, as well as the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, did not seem to have had any direct effect on this region of the Central Plain. Since the Shaanxi Hui rebels in general were not joined by the Hui in Xi'an, which remained under Qing government control, the Hui of Xi'an was spared from the war by the Qing government and from the fighting, and remained in Xi'an after the war. Xi'an's walls withstood a rebel siege for 2 years in 1870 and 1871 and did not fall. That brings us to the end of this video. The story will continue in my next video as we look at the second wave of this revolt, which centers on the struggle in Xinjiang. If you've enjoyed watching and it's shown you a little detail of life and events here in China, then your subscribing to my channel would mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching. Make sure you click on the link to the next video, and until the next time, goodbye for now.